matters concerning the People's National Party member of parliament is being hotly debated in media. I have a few questions on it for you, Harry. I hope you can help me with that.
Sure, always, neighbor.
Okay. Now, the PNP faces a challenge here, Harry. The leader of the opposition suggests that the party signed the political code of conduct, and Pellucid Perry is referring to the leader as the integrity boss. The PNP leader in his budget presentation also spoke of morals and values and all of that. We see today that Mr. Gordon paid $10 million, which suggests that he admitted that something was not right. How do you think the PNP has handled this matter so far, Harry? And how would you have handled it were you to provide advice to them?
Well, neighbor, to be honest, let me first start and say it's a commendable step as to what Mr. Gordon did, but I don't think the payment of putting what was technically taken away from the people of Jamaica, I don't think the repayment bars the persecution that should follow. So not because you quote unquote make the situation right again or try to correct it means you should be free of consequences. And as such, for me personally, whatever the law states for a violation of this manner, you should face the full consequences of that law. Now, that is sending more than one message to the people of Jamaica. Again, we've heard of this thing where there's two sets of laws in Jamaica, one for the rich and one for the poor. In this case, if Mr. Gordon should walk scot-free and his institution walks scot-free because they've just paid back the money that should have been paid in the first case, then people will look at it as the law for the rich. And that does not send a good signal for our judiciary system, right? Now, the next thing it does is it sets a level of precedence that the law has to be upheld. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what class you're from, you're not above the law. And as such, you should be treated justly as the law states. Now, that ends it as to what I expect should be the outcome. Whether that will be the case, we'll have to wait to see. In terms of the advice for the opposition leader, not even the party, the leader first, he himself has to do what is ethically and morally correct. And being dubbed as the integrity boss and being put on a pedestal for that characteristic, he himself has to be faced with serious scrutiny and should also be judged critically. Here's why. You don't come and laud yourself and give yourself all these praises for something, knowing well that you're either one of two things. You are either misled by your member, or you knew, but you turned a blind eye. And a third thing to it is both. And if it is both, then it raises a question as to the type of leader the opposition leader is. And as such, that is not somebody you want to be holding or even having the possibility or the probability of getting the highest office in a nation like Jamaica. You have to uphold that no matter who you are and who gets into what trouble. Because if we go back to the press conference, neighbor, where he says, wherever they let the chip falls where it may, but he did also stumble to say he spoke with the party involved, despite saying there was nobody involved, right? So he stuttered over his words, but saying he spoke with the member and that member said nothing was done wrong. For me, from a leadership standpoint, you have to. This is not where your hands are tied. You have to make an example of that individual as well, if you so uphold that integrity status. Because if you do anything less, then you would have just tolerated something which is the acceptance in the eyes of Jamaicans. And as such, you should also demit office. Because people need to understand that when you come out unfazed and you boastful about integrity, leaving no room for error or mishaps, when you come out so strongly questioning the integrity and the credibility of another person and another party, you have to ensure that you are squeaky clean. And if it's one thing we know, neighbor, is that you can never ever swear for anybody else but yourself. That was not the case with the opposition leader. He himself has come up boastful, acting as if everyone is, maybe in Perry's words, or paraphrasing him here, they are righteous. Because to tie in Mr. Perry's words, he's not supporting an unrighteous government, which simply indicates that the opposition must be righteous. And you and I know, neighbor, there's no righteous government in this world. Now, to tie it in is that Mr. Golding has to come to the forefront and give the country the details that he has been hiding and or that was withheld from him. And as such, he has to take the necessary actions against the member, which simply means you have to remove him from the post. Nothing less.
And what post you're talking about? What post?
In terms of the Mr. Gordon, right? Because that is a violation, not just for the party and not just as an individual, but a violation to the Constitution, to the laws that the people should uphold. And if you have a member that is violating it at the detriment to Jamaicans, because this is him going against and robbing technically funds that should be going to the government.
His company.
Right, his company, right? And as such, he himself also has to do some introspection and do what is morally correct. Not just paying over that money. That doesn't solve anything. That doesn't bring the equity of what the law says and what action was taken in that manner. Now, to go back to Mr. Golding, he has to make a decision, and that decision will have to be some form of reprimanding that member because of what happened with his company, whether it is not just because there's a breach to the law, but also for the fact that he may have withheld information from him. Because remember, by Mr. Golding's words, he said he asked, and the member said nothing was done wrongfully. And by those words, it means he himself, as the opposition leader, was misled by this member, and as such, that is ripping the trust that should be there. And just by that evidence of information, you have to ensure that you treat this issue with extreme prejudice. Now, for Mr. Golding, if it is deemed that he himself lied to the public about this interaction with the member, then he himself now, as the integrity boss, has to now become the moral boss and step aside. Because you would have also now not bring misinformation and disinformation, but you would have blatantly look into the people of Jamaica and say, especially in our most critical time, this was in Melissa, right? When we're down, and you would have looked at Jamaica and the state that it was in and come and blatantly lie publicly, then you yourself has to either demit office and also accept that you lied to the people and offer a public apology for that misleading. And that is where I land on that manner, because integrity, neighbor, again, remember, nobody went ahead and ruffled the feathers of Mr. Golding. Nobody went ahead and crowned him as an integrity boss. He ran with it. He was boastful with it. And them say, neighbor, the saying goes, the higher the monkey climb, the more him exposed. This is just that. He has exalted himself, and as such now has found himself in a rather peculiar situation. And he has to do what is right for the country and set an example, which he himself has to be the example. To see, let's see where it is a test of his moral compass as well, you know. Let's not fool ourselves about that. This is also a test to see what truly is his leadership character, what type of leader he is. And if he refuses to offer an apology to the public and also take the necessary steps, then that would be falling short, well off the mark that is accepted in society now for every and any person as a representation in representational politics and anybody who is in a leadership position.
Okay, before I get to protective, why is this appearing to be so controversial or so difficult? The audit flagged JACDEN for transactions involving the University Hospital of the West Indies tax-exempt imports. Is not correct?
Right.
Mr. Gordon's company benefited financially from government-related contracts while he was a sitting MP. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Gordon was a member of the Parliamentary Public Account Committee, which reviews government expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Gordon, the Gleaner is reported, paid back $10 million to the government, which should have been paid already. So what is the difficulty here?
Well, the difficulty, no, neighbor, well, to them it may be deemed as a level of difficulty, but it is what is just and what is right, not just under the law, but morally. Neighbor, this is also a test for the opposition to see where their moral compass is. It is
stick up in, Harry. If you are overseeing a company and you have authorization to use your tax exemption to bring in supplies for your company, let's say you have a charitable status,
mm-hmm.
and someone approaches you to use that to take in barrels for them to sell in their shops, that would be corrupt.
It is fraud. It's fraudulent and it's corruption.
So what are we seeing here? The University of the Hospital ought not to have brought in items that does not belong to the university. Isn't that what we have here?
That is exactly so.
So why are we? What is this curtain around? Something wrong has happened.
Neighbor, I not even want to put it like, let's say something wrong. It is unlawful.
Oh,
it is a violation of the land, right? The laws of the land. And it has to go through that due process and to be treated as such. It's not something that should be sugar-coated. And what makes it so serious, neighbor, is that I can tell you this has not been the first rodeo. It is just now they may be caught red-handed, right? But understand that a level of coercion and corruption had to be done under more than one institutions, the parties that are involved. So it is not just one person that this has to be, it's falling on. But it is a starting of Mr. Gordon and his company. That is where it starts. Because we have not touched in terms of the board for the UE and who signed off on what. But we're looking at who is in office. This person who swore an oath to do right by our fellow countrymen, who has been put in position to lead us in the right way. And instead, they have led with coercion, corruption, and fraudulent activities. That in itself should not be a question as to what next should happen. It should be a matter of formality that he himself stepped down first and also face the consequences under the law. This is not a conversation we should have even been having. It should have been automatic.
I agree.